These are my disclosures. And I'm going to be concentrating on the study that Jack Wells just presented so eloquently. The 1-year data was published in the New England Journal, and subsequently the 2-year data in the Ophthalmology Journal. And the information I'll be sharing was published by the DRCR Retina Network recently in the American Journal of Ophthalmology, although I'm not speaking on behalf of the network. So this is the entire cohort out to 2 years with aflibercept, bevacizumab, or ranibizumab for treating diabetic macular edema, and the average vision outcomes. And as was pointed out, when the visual acuity was 2032 to 2040, on average, there was no difference in the visual acuity gains, only when the visual acuity was 2050 or worse. But for this question, I'm going to combine all these groups and discuss if we can predict the 2-year outcomes based on either the visual acuity changes or the OCT changes after just 3 anti-VEGF injections, or DME. Can we tell after those 3 injections how the person is doing and whether we should be changing regimens or thinking that the patient is doing well or not doing well? So let's just take the aflibercept group. And the y-axis here shows you the change in visual acuity from baseline to 2 years. And what we're going to look at is first what happens after the first 3 injections at that dotted line along the x-axis, the 12 weeks. And what we can see is with the aflibercept group, some of the eyes, about 25%, had gained less than 5 letters after just 3 injections. Some gained 5 to 9 letters, and about 50% gained 10 or more letters. We're going to concentrate on the group that you might be worried about. After 3 injections, they gained less than 5 letters. Can we predict that this group is not going to do well by 2 years? The answer is no. There's a highly variable response from 12 weeks to 2 years. This is the 2-year data. And in yellow shows us that about 40% of this group then ended up with a 10 or more letter gain. So it was a highly variable outcome. Some of the eyes, about 50%, had no further improvement, but 40% gained 10 or more letters, and were unable to determine who those people are going to be. And this is that same data that I showed you, gaining less than 5 letters at 12 weeks, and the data were similar regardless of the anti-VEGF agent that were used. What about the flip side? If you gained 10 or more letters after 3 injections, you were likely, but not definitely, going to have 10 or more letter gain by 2 years, as you can see with the yellow in each of the bars shown for the 3 agents here. So eyes gaining less than 5 letters at 3 months had less visual acuity improvement at 2 years on average than those that gained 10 or more letters, but there was substantial individual variability of long-term changes, preventing us from confidently determining how those eyes might do when they gain less than 5 letters after just 3 injections. What about the absolute visual acuity letter score? Can we guess as to whether they would be 20/25 or better, 20/32 to 20/40, or 20/50 or worse after gaining less than 5 letters at 12 weeks? Well, no. There's a highly variable response. You can see here that about 15% of the eyes will indeed be 20/50 or worse, but most of the eyes will be 20/40 or better. And if you gained 10 or more letters after 3 injections, the same percentage of eyes, 15%, will end up 20/50 or worse at 2 years. And so you cannot predict what the absolute level of visual acuity will be just based on how the eye improved or did not improve after 3 injections. And that was true regardless of the agent used. What about the OCT response after 3 injections? If it changed less than 10%, again, a highly variable outcome. Some of the eyes ended up gaining 10 or more letters by 2 years. 20% gained less than 5 letters. And that's variable here, where you can see that about 20% would gain less than 5 letters when they had little change on the OCT after just 3 injections. But what if you had a big change on the OCT, 20% or more decrease after 3 injections? Again, we see the same percentage of eyes gained less than 5 letters. So the change in OCT response after 3 injections did not allow you to determine how much change there would be in the vision by 2 years. And this is true regardless of the agent used. And so if we put all this information together that we might know after 3 injections, what was the baseline vision? What was the change in the vision from baseline to 12 weeks? What was the baseline central subfield thickness? What was the change in the baseline central subfield thickness out to 12 weeks? If we put all that information together, the R squared at 0.38 says that this information only explains about 40% of the change in vision that you'll see at 2 years. 60% is due to other factors that we don't know. And this is true regardless of the agents that were used. So in conclusion, the visual acuity response at 12 weeks following 3 monthly injections is associated with the 2-year outcomes regardless of the agent used, but a suboptimal response that we're most concerned about, less than 5-letter gain after 3 injections, did not preclude further meaningful vision improvement, for example, gaining 2 or more lines without switching therapy at 2 years. About 2/3 of the variation in the 2-year visual acuity outcomes remain unexplained if you know the visual acuity and the OCT central subfield thickness changes. The same percentage of eyes end up 20, 40 or better, about 85% with the Kleber set, whether you have less than a 5-letter gain or a 10 or more letter gain after just 3 injections. There's little evidence to suggest switching from this DRCR retina network regimen for DME after 3 or 6 injections will result in better vision results, for example, adding corticosteroids as was looked at in Protocol U, than just continuing this regimen out through 2 years for diabetic macular edema. But we do need further studies to pursue other ways of getting improved outcomes with alternative regimens compared with our current standard of this network regimen. Thank you very much.